Reconstructionists. We are back. Corina,
Hey,
hello.
how, how are you?
Great, great. Best co-host
It's
ever.
pretty. You stop it. It is pretty great to be
You're the only one
here.
I've ever had, but I mean, it's the best,
You know, I,
nonetheless.
I'm still. When you're batting 100, just keep it there, right? Or whatever the baseball term
It's
is.
1,000, but whatever.
Bat 100 is probably really, really bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's been an exciting week for both of us. We got a little caught up for the call. We won't get into that, folks. What we have been talking about, discussing this week is some thoughts on mindset after you leave the Jehovah's Witnesses or another high control group. One thing I think about is just the amount of energy, like mental, emotional energy it takes to try to free yourself to get out. And I think there's a feeling when you finally feel like you got your feet planted in freedom, you're like, I made it, right? Like I'm here, I've arrived, like that's done. And I mean, it's a huge accomplishment, right?
Right, but it's
But
just beginning.
it's just
It's just
beginning,
beginning.
right? Yes, yeah. So there's a feeling of arrival in one place, and then I think kind of when that, I'll call it a high. You have that high when you first get out. I felt that way. Maybe other people can relate. But then it kind of dips off to normal. And then, as we said before, there's that like, what now? What do I do now? Like that took so much energy, and now I'm out. But now what? And I think mindset can really, our attitude and our mindset can play a lot into the reconstruction process, rebuilding. Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on like for yourself when
Yeah, it's
you?
funny that you say it's funny that you say that there's a and absolutely there's a lot of people who have that like, oh yes, finally I'm out. And I've seen, the stories on Reddit. I had the opposite experience because I was still mentally in when I was out. So
Mhm.
here I was beating myself up for
Mm,
I know better. I should, but not feeling good enough and all getting caught up in that cycle of shame to then later realize, oh, I feel shame about things that I should have never felt shame about. And then I was just angry.
mm,
So that's the mindset that I had to shift was that
mm.
like angry place.
Yeah, yeah. I think anger is a natural reaction, right? Because it has been pointed out is when there's injustice or things that feel wrong, we're rightfully angry, and I think that's a big part of it. You feel like I've been lied to. I've been treating myself this way for no good reason. I've
Hmm.
had these restrictions put on me, and I didn't need to
Hmm.
be hating myself, for lack of a better expression, this whole time, right? Or so much shame.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that anger, and I think the anger can actually be a driver for us to change and to grow into our new life. And I
Hmm.
think the secret is to not get stuck in it too long.
No, I definitely agree with that because I feel like for me, that anger was what fueled me to make sure that every decision that I was making was one that I wanted to and one that would actually make me happy.
Mm.
And so in some sort of weird way, that anger was training me to be happy.
Hmm.
And then once I realized like, okay, I'm getting happier about things, but I still have like these unresolved angry feelings, that's when I started like doing it in a healthier way.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I think
Yeah.
that there's also a part of us that we tend to look back on ourselves as Jehovah's Witnesses, and I think we even maybe made a joking comment last week, like, "How could I be so stupid or blind?" Right? You have that thought. And I think sometimes it's just a passing thought, but I think sometimes we can even get stuck in that thought, right? Like, how was I ever a part of that in the first place? And we start to shit on our past self, like judge ourselves from the present person we are, towards that past person. And I
Hmm.
think, I think that's natural, but I think we got to find a pathway to forgiving that version of ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think there's plenty of pathways to get there. And I know for me, one has just been contextualizing uh, that past me in the sense of, well, that was my upbringing. My
Gotcha.
grandparents had converted, and in your case, you were a child, right? A young child. So I think if you
Mhm.
can just fill out all of the influences and pressure on that person to conform to a certain, belief pattern and way of life, it just gives you a little more understanding for yourself, right? Like,
No,
no wonder
absolutely.
why I did this. No wonder why I believed, X, because that's all I was exposed to as,
Yep.
a child.
Yep. I remember when I got back in touch with my aunt, who is just the most amazing person. She's getting married in like 3 weeks, and I'm so
Ooh,
excited for her. Oh
congratulations,
my
Auntie.
goodness. Thank you. I will pass along
Tia.
your good wishes. Titi. That's Titi.
Titi. Yes, Titi.
Um, and so she was also raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and she was actually disfellowshipped when she was like 15. I don't want to get too into her story because I don't want to like, oh, then this is anyway. But I was telling her how I felt angry at like myself because like I'd like to think that I'm an intelligent person, didn't go to college, but that's we weren't given that opportunity, unfortunately. But I'd like to think I'm an intelligent person who has critical thought decision making skills. How was I so caught up in that for so long? And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, Gary, that was what you knew. So that's what was normal.
Mm.
Like and that I had to stop beating myself up just like you were
Mm-hmm.
talking about because there was no way I would have known any differently until obviously something happens that shifts things.
Mm-hmm. True.
And I know like something that we had discussed about, going off in this episode about is feelings towards current witnesses. And I really had to um separate the people from the organization in a sense where you look at ex cult members and they're victims, right, of being in a cult. Current cult members are even more victims because they're still actively in it and they're still actively believing all of these lies that they're being told or spoon fed or what have you. And I promise this is not to disrespect anyone who is, currently one of Jehovah's Witnesses still, who happens to be listening to this or who, has sympathy towards them for because, oh, my aunt, or what have you. This isn't to be disrespectful, but I feel bad for them. I'm not like angry at them. I don't think that I'm better than them. I
Mm-hmm.
feel bad because they haven't been given the opportunity that we've been given to actually critically examine things from multiple sides and make a decision for ourselves. And it could be for a lot of reasons that they don't do that. Um, but regardless of what their personal reasons are for not, whether they truly, truly believe or they're just scared to find out what's on the other side of the curtain, I my heart hurts for them.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, I think kind of going back a little bit, that's very related to what we were saying earlier about forgiving our past selves and kind of the idea I brought up about looking at all the context around why we made certain decisions, why we maybe shunned somebody or disrespected someone or did something that we typically wouldn't have done, but again, the belief system has an influence there. I
mhm,
think you could take that and find a pathway to forgiveness for your past self, but also you can do that with current Jehovah's Witnesses, where you say that they're in the same boat. I found my way out through like a series of events that I didn't really really I didn't have control over for the
none.
most part. There were just things that
Yeah.
happened to me that were like started setting off light bulbs. And
Mhm.
current Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of them, most of them, like you're saying, haven't just had the opportunity yet uh, to look, to examine things, or they're too afraid. And but there's something in their life, and maybe they were brought up as witnesses too, or they were in a vulnerable spot when they converted, or they just liked the sound of the message or the people, whatever it was that attracted them.
Mhm.
Those are, they have their reasons for being there, and probably a lot of those reasons are also out of their control. And that's not to, we're not here trying to excuse bad behavior, right? Like, especially on the part of the leadership, we'll say in the Jehovah's Witnesses. That's not the point of this, but I think it's
Right.
good to I use this word. I don't want to use it, but just find some grace. Let's put it that way, right? For
Hey, I'm big on giving grace
mm-hmm.
to other people and to
Mm,
yourself. So ride with
you're
it,
fine.
okay?
Okay, all right. I think the more we're willing to forgive, I just think it's better for us all around. And like I said, that the anger is natural. There can be bitterness or sadness. All of that, of course, exists, and it's tough. But to find a way out of that, we have to forgive ourselves. And also, even if they're the people, the Jehovah's Witnesses who are active, or whatever group it is, aren't actively participating in the forgiveness with us, I still think we need to find a way to forgive them, even if they're not talking to us or communicating with us. Again, just, try to, like, as much as possible, open up and have an objective viewpoint of
Yep.
them. And I think it's good for our own mental and emotional health to do so.
Right. I know for me that was a big factor in forgiving, family or whomever, because I didn't want to hold on to that, being in that angry, hurt place still. I recognizing that they are also human, that they are also that under an influence that I was under at one point as well. It really made me humanize the people within the organization, because when I was out at first, I felt like just collectively it was all, the Watchtower Society or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and it just all felt icky, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted nothing to do with anyone or anything that was remotely related to it. And now I'm in this place of, okay, I'm not mad at you at all, and in fact the opposite. I feel bad.
Yeah. I think time, it takes time and, a little distance from it to get that perspective, gain that perspective. So, again, if you're having those feelings, there's no judgment towards you at all. Like, you got to take time, and it takes time to
And
process all of that.
actually, if I can just
Hmm.
be very honest and human and admit right now, I've realized lately I'm having angry feelings again. Like I had gotten to a point where I was like, cool with it, cool with it, cool with it. And I recognize when I'm getting cool with it because I stay off of the XJW Reddit more.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
um, and then I think all these changes that they made lately have really
Hmm.
affected me, and to the point where I'm angry about it, and it's something that right now I'm actively trying to make sure that I say that to say I'm not here saying, guys, I got it all figured.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I'm reprocessing things. It is absolutely ups and downs.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
yeah.
I'm glad you
So
pointed
I
out it's a continual process. We're not like, you know, oh, we got it all figured out. We've let go all negative feelings are gone. It's not that. It's not
no.
what we're saying at all.
No,
So
actually, recently I was traveling and I bragged to Bo afterwards about the fact that when I was at the airport, I saw witnesses and I was just like, "Oh, pants," and they were like, "They were like, yeah," and I was like, "Oh, you would have gotten in trouble like 6 months ago for that, bye."
just let that marinate.
So right, so no, I'm still obviously very much processing a lot of stuff,
Hmm.
but it's just nice being in a place where I can stop myself earlier and be like, "Oh, no, Karina, that's not right."
Hmm.
Retrain your thoughts.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I have like a constant low level rage just waiting to explode. No. Is that part of the process? I'm joking. I'm joking.
Everyone
That's
who knows Bo knows that he's just ready to explode.
all the time. Um, another thing I thought as part of our mindset, and I think this is multifaceted. I mean, each one of these could probably be a separate episode, but I think having feeling like you found, now that you've left that, you've found another truth. And I think that that's okay. Like, I think you have to, in some respects, find new beliefs, maybe spirituality, if that's your thing, or you're going to find some new beliefs or ideas, and build that into your new personality. Right. But I think there's a danger too of feeling like you've found, like, let's say a capital T truth
Hmm.
after you leave. I'm gonna like poke at my area of belief or lack thereof, let's call it that, which is, I basically call myself an atheist for all, better expressions, better or worse. That's what I call myself. And I think that there's a good chunk of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that land in that space.
Hmm.
And I'm not, like, obviously atheism isn't supposed to be a belief structure per se. It's just a lack of belief, right, in a
Hmm.
deity, whatever, however you want to put it. But I found that some of us, and I'm sure I've been guilty of this too at some points, some of us feel like, forgive me, everyone, all you atheists out there, bear with me. But I feel like, at least in our comments or the way we talk to people, there might be a little bit of feeling like now we're somehow enlightened for just not believing in a religion or God. And I think that there's a certain feeling, maybe even of superiority sometimes, or at least it comes off that way when we're
Okay.
talking about people who still believe. Where you're saying, "Oh, great, yeah, you believe in fairy tales. Yeah, why don't you go talk to your sky daddy?" And like expressions like
Hmm.
that. And I'm not trying to like shit on people. I get, sometimes it's just done for fun or jest, and I haven't held back in like poking at religion or the Bible sometimes. But at the same time, I think it's the way we treat people. And I think sometimes it could become a, like, this feeling of again, like, superiority, where you're looking
Hmm.
down on, look at these poor, dummies who believe this stuff that's just nonsense, right? And I don't see how that, I'm not talking beliefs, but just as a way of viewing humanity. I don't see how that's much better than just being a Jehovah's Witness and thinking that all worldly people are inferior to you.
Hmm.
So I yes, I call myself an atheist, but I'm also just trying to remain very curious and not feel like I've now stumbled upon the truth. The truth is there is no God. The truth is that all religion is a brain parasite or a delusion, or however it gets
Or
framed.
a racket and a snare.
We're snaring a racket and a snare. Yes. Channeling Rutherford tonight. You know,
Sorry. Yeah, I
that
had
guy's,
to.
he's got to be up in heaven, with the other 149,000, whatever they're at now, 200,000, 250,000.
It's more than
More than,
144 at this point. It has to
definitely.
be.
Yeah, he's women and pants. I mean, he
Oh, he is. Oh, he is up there foaming at the mouth.
guys bringing
Beards.
back they're bringing back the Taze Russell beards.
Exactly, exactly. Guys,
Mm,
and the thing is, which is hilarious to me, that so many people don't know that that's like the like actual reason why it started being banned, because he
yeah,
was jealous of CT Russell.
yeah. What's really funny, this is funny, is that after I woke up, this is just a side tangent, everyone. After I woke up, I was still physically in for a bit, and I went to Patterson with people, and they had the signs, like the picket signs there for photo opportunities. And
Oh yeah,
remember,
yeah,
I was holding, I have a picture of me holding that, like, religion is a snare and a racket. And nobody had any clue what was going through my head at that point, where I'm like,
yeah. You're like, yeah, this one, this
this
one.
one, this, like, this building I'm in. is part of the snare and racket.
It's a snare and a racket. Also, quick tangent on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until after I woke up that I realized that Joe Rutherford basically formed a coup and seized
Oh
power
yeah,
of Watchtower because he
yeah.
was not one of the ones who was supposed to be in, the inner circle or whatever like that. He was
Well,
not one of the named ones that from Rutherford.
he was like the Anthony Morris of his time. Like if Anthony, if Anthony Morris had been a lawyer, he would have gotten everybody taken out too. But because he's not a
That's
lawyer,
he was right.
he didn't have
Right.
a
He was a
chance.
lawyer.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, it wasn't until afterwards I was like, wait a minute.
Wait a
They
minute. Yeah.
paint it as like, no, but God, he
Yeah.
was actually God's chosen just because he said so. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Let's go back.
That's all right.
Open-mindedness.
Yeah. So just talking about like curiosity and feeling like you found, the truth or
Mhm,
capital T true after you've left versus I think remaining curious. And like I haven't been convinced to believe any religions since I
mhm,
left. I definitely have my own spiritual experiences of as we've talked about before, and but I've found myself just opening a lot more with curiosity towards people's beliefs
mhm.
and appreciating them. Um, and that's in different facets. That's at work and people I meet and the hobbies I'm involved in, and I again just extend that even out towards active Jehovah's Witnesses, or if you have family members in a different high control group.
Now, I have a question for you in
Mm-hmm.
this sort of like curiosity side of things. Because this is something I noticed for me. I have a hard time like taking Christianity seriously
Mm-hmm.
now. And I feel bad saying that. Apologies to anyone who identifies as a Christian or has a strong Christian faith. But I'm just at the point now where it's so to me. And I've
Yeah.
tried a few different times, like,
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who are I believe they're born again Christians, so they are very devout to their faith. And on one hand, I think that it's beautiful for them, but I'm at the point where I'm like, ugh, could never be me. Ugh, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And on one hand, that feels right to me right now, just because of our background and our experience. But on the other hand, that's something that I'm battling because am I doing that because it like genuinely isn't right for me, or
Mm-hmm.
am I judging them a little bit? I don't think I am,
Yeah.
but it's hard for me right now to separate that.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like you're. I think it's actually okay, really, to. And I've done this obviously
Mhm,
with Jehovah's Witness beliefs and just general Christian beliefs. I think there should be nothing wrong with poking at the beliefs or feeling like it's not right for us. That's obviously our option at this point, right? Yeah, like our decision. I
mhm,
think it's like I think it's putting down the people or feeling like they're lesser than you for having that belief system or they're less intelligent. Just like we said, like the fact that we were witnesses before didn't mean we weren't intelligent.
mhm.
Like
Right.
and there's witnesses who are very intelligent. It's not really a question of intelligence. There's a lot of actually throughout the world. We could just expand that. There's a lot of very intelligent people who believe very different things, right?
Yep.
Like it's not
Yep.
intelligence. It's not a marker of intelligence. But I feel like sometimes, um, you know, especially with the atheists again, I feel like they kind of talk about believers like they're infants, like
Mhm.
they're like, yeah, well, you need your little toy to hold on to your teddy bear, and so
To
they're
feel
there. You're
safe or
just
what have you. Okay.
yeah to feel safe, and you're. I think that's kind of belittling to people, and I've tried to, even though I again like I feel the same way a lot with Christianity. I have that
It's
feeling
okay.
where just like none of it convinces me. I don't believe any of it. I think there's huge holes in the story, and but
Not holes.
yeah. And but I think you can have those feelings that you're talking about and still show respect to the people who do
Yeah.
believe that.
Mhm. No, I agree. Um, it's just hard for me to separate Christianity right now from
Hmm.
witnesses also, which is funny because so many people don't even realize that Jehovah's Witnesses are Christians.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Um, but it's something that I can tell that I'm acknowledging, so I'm working with
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's all we can do, right? Like we were saying with any of this, it's just you got to keep working with it and figuring it out. And I think to the extent possible, if we can like try to cultivate an open mind,
Hmm.
um, and that doesn't mean we have to be gullible or believe what other people believe. That's not the idea. But just again, if it's more curiosity than judgment, I feel like we'll typically
Hmm.
that'll come off in the way we treat people.
Right,
Like,
right, right,
just why
right.
do you believe that? And not not the also like jump right down their throats, because I think sometimes you have that. I had that feeling in the beginning where I was like, oh yeah, you need to read this book, you need to do this, like go to this website, watch this
Hmm.
video, and like let me help free you from your insane beliefs. But then you're like, how is this in a way different than what Jehovah's Witnesses do? Like, I don't have to proselytize each person I meet to like give up religion. And if everyone becomes atheists on this planet and gives up religion, we're not going to create some type of utopia by doing that.
No.
We're not going to get to paradise.
You said
Like,
something really interesting though. Like I've never thought to actually just ask like why do you believe, like what is it, and not in any sort of like attacky kind of way, but like, hey, so
mhm,
what is it about the faith that you why you believe it? And to that point about like the curiosity and the open-mindedness, I think that for me that's why I'm so drawn to just spirituality as a whole, because it kind of gives me that freedom to I I know some people have very strong feelings about religion and you shouldn't cherry pick, but yeah, I'm going to cherry pick what feels good for me. So I'll take a little from here and apply it if it makes me feel good and if it makes me a better person, and a little from here and a little from here. And, at the end of the day, it's a modge posh of beliefs that go a little bit everywhere, but hey, that's me.
yeah, yeah. Wasn't there like a Watchtower Awake with like a shopping cart and all like the religious emblems in it, or there's an article or something?
Probably
And
that's
everyone's
me.
doing it, but you're like, oh yeah, we can do that now. Like, you can totally, if you want to, like get like the big fucking Costco shopping cart and throw in there whatever you want.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, and it really just boils down to that freedom of choice. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's at the end of the day, that's it. I was recently having a conversation with my boyfriend and we were talking about like, if we have da, 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 da. And I was just like, I just want my kids to be able to have the choice to do things because he knows
Mm-hmm.
about my witness upbringing and what that was like, and trying to kind of break him in a little bit more with some of this deeper stuff, but I also don't want to like scare him. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta just try to like dip the toes little by little.
Right, right,
It's
right.
like, it's just like sharing your beliefs. I think it was in the Watchtower article. You don't want like
Stop.
you don't want to release a deluge on them. You just want like little trickle, little
Stop.
sprinkle.
Shit. This is just like I'm literally just doing cult tactics.
I mean, hey, we still do a lot of it.
Well, apparently
Sorry.
we are still deconstructing as we reconstruct people.
Well, you're gonna find it everywhere. You're gonna find it everywhere. You can't escape it.
Mhm.
This is one of the things I realized. I was like, and I've said it before. Like, there's just cults everywhere, and I still engage in a behavior you could look up in a book about cults. I know I'm still doing those things. I think everyone does, and I think it's been put on a spectrum, right, between like healthy and unhealthy. I'm not saying we're all cult leaders, but to some degree, as Daniel Pink has pointed out, to sell is human, right? Like, we're constantly we're constantly like selling ourselves to other people, and they're selling themselves to us, and
Mhm.
you know, trying to move product all the time.
Oh, right.
So, and as Jehovah's Witnesses, you use sales techniques. That's what a lot of it is, and so
You do. You do. I remember
Yeah,
having a conversation
can't
with my
escape
old
them.
boss. I used to be a recruiter, and I was telling her like, "Oh my God, no wonder I'm good
Sorry,
at
I
this."
just stop and laugh at that. It's like you're like, oh, recruiter, like let me at it.
No, seriously, seriously. We were sitting in
Hmm.
her office, and not for anything, but I was very good at that job. That was one of my
Yeah.
favorite jobs. And I was like, oh my God, Ashley, no wonder I'm good. Because we were talking about witness stuff.
Hmm.
No wonder I'm good at my job. I was literally recruiting for God for
Yeah.
20 years. Like,
Hmm.
hello. And we cracked up.
Yes. Yeah. See,
Yep.
some of these skills are they're transferable, right,
Yep.
to new life. So what can we say?
uh,
I think
yeah.
that's also could be a part of the mindset too, right? Is looking at there are actually positive aspects that we walk away with
Yep.
from being raised Jehovah's Witnesses. I
Yep.
wouldn't
I
know how to
do.
talk into a microphone if it wasn't for them.
Right here. Um, And I think about that a lot actually. I wouldn't be as comfortable with public speaking or speaking to strangers because I can talk to anyone. I wouldn't speak to and like a tenth of language. Um, there's a lot of things that probably wouldn't have molded me into the person I am if it had not been for that upbringing. So there is always good to the bad, even though sometimes we don't want to admit it. There is.
Yes, yeah. I mean, for me too, second language I learned. I
Mhm.
had to relearn a lot of slang and swear words after I left, but I'm
Do you have
getting
a
caught
favorite
up
one?
now.
Do you have a favorite Spanish swear word now? And is it
Spanish.
puta?
No, it's not puta. Come on, everyone knows that.
Right?
I'm
Because you're
a,
like, that's basic.
like another tangent, folks. Bear with us, but like this is how blessed I am. Hashtag blessed, right? This is an amazing thing. This is an amazing thing that happened.
Mhm.
It's like Jehovah handpicked me for this assignment. So I was in a Spanish congregation and an elder in Spanish for I don't know. I was in over a decade in Spanish, and I leave the organization, and it's like, what am I gonna do with this Spanish, right? And once in a while at work or something would come up, or people would be like, "Can you translate?" And yeah, jump in. But for the most part, it's like, okay, I know Spanish, nice for traveling, but what else? And then this is where
Mhm.
the blessing comes in.
Go on. I can't
I
wait.
now have a group of it's my own Spanish mountain biking congregation. We have a whole like Latin subsection within my mountain biking group. And so I'm now like I'm conducting weekly group rides with them.
Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
It's
So
wonderful.
you
They're
guys,
like, how do you
you
speak
two will
Spanish?
take
And I'm like,
you two will take this trail and you two will take this trail and we'll meet back in the middle in like an hour.
regroup for coffee break. Yeah, yep. All right, I got it. But sorry, I just want to share that story with everyone. I love it. It makes me so happy. And of
That's
course, they're all like, "How do
awesome.
you speak Spanish?" And it's like, "Oh, I was in a cult." And they're like, "Oh, sweet." So,
Oh
almost every like Spanish person has at least a cousin or something that's a Jehovah's Witness. So they always are like, "Oh yeah, my cousin in Mexico," or or
hmm
it's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, my stepsister in Ecuador," and it's like, okay, yeah. So there's
Yep.
always some connection there. And I'm like,
Yep.
stay away, stay away.
Right. Like
So
you
do what you
don't want
want, but
and
stay away.
you don't want that. But I mean, but if you choose to, that's fine. But my suggestion as someone who you're fine. You're fine. You like
Mhm.
talking to your
Yeah,
family, you're fine.
very true. And
Yep.
circling back to where we were, I think that uh, curiosity as well and
Hmm.
being open is just uh, there's so much I didn't know as a Jehovah's Witness. And so many ideas I'd never explored or thoughts I'd looked at ever in my life. And uh, use your curiosity there if you can. Not even necessarily just like looking at other people and their beliefs, but just
Hmm.
for yourself to just expand your own worldview through.
Hmm.
There's a lot of different ways to do it. I think it's good to have friends who have different opinions than we have.
Hmm.
That's one way. Um, I think reading can be
The friends with different
big.
opinions thing is such a good point that I like, yes, obviously I do have that, but because of our background, again, everyone, at least from the mouth out, had the same opinion. So if you secretly did have a different belief or opinion or think that doesn't, you never felt safe enough to actually verbalize that because even your spouse could be someone who would tell you, no, you have to go to the elders, and if you
Hmm.
don't, I will. So that's something we weren't allowed to experience as friends with actual different opinions, and which is why it's so important for us to make sure that we establish that on the outside.
Yeah, yeah, and I know for myself, like again, we're gonna have gut reactions. Like I have gut reactions when people say things that are completely different to what I think.
Hmm.
I tend to be fairly liberal politically. I'm not gonna like get into my political beliefs here, but and living where I'm at in the Midwest, there's a lot of very conservative people.
Hmm.
And at first, I'd want to, I get my feathers ruffled, and but I've tried to, and having to work with them and interact with them. Most of them are super nice people. We
Hmm.
have completely different opinions, but it doesn't, have to change the way we treat each other, I think. And but I found it helpful to me just to again try to understand how they think, and then just look at myself too and be like, like why is it that I think my idea is good politically versus theirs?
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean I'm gonna like, suddenly join their party or their side of the aisle, let's say. But
Yeah.
again, it's just that curiosity, and then bounce it off my own beliefs and be like, hmm, like, did I just stumble into this and think it's the right thing, or have I really thought this through?
Right. And I hate that it's going to sound so witnessy, but it actually does like make you actually examine your own beliefs when you take a moment to consider the other person's side, and do so without judgment or without this sort of secret air of like, oh, I'm looking into it just to prove it wrong.
Yeah, right. Um, how have you like found that idea of like curiosity? Was that tough for you at all in the beginning, just to like be open minded, or did you feel like you were like a sponge ready to absorb? I know
I
we kind of
f-
left through different paths, but
Probably more the latter, because mm, as we know, I was Pomi. So at first, I was still very like focused on that Jehovah's Witnesses still had the true religion. Like I would just call myself a non-practicing Jehovah's Witness. So I didn't really have an open mind. And then once I started finding, or not even finding, but realizing the holes that were in the belief patterns and all that, and actually allowing myself to actually do research, um, because I had that angry place, I was just like, all right, well, I just want to learn everything that I can then, because obviously I was lied to, and what I was told was truth is not. I just want to learn everything, and then I'm going to decide what is true to me. So
yeah.
that's kind of how it felt for me.
Hmm. Right. And I think that we go into the process, right? I think coming out of it, it leaves us open, but also hopefully we've like developed critical thinking skills through it
Hmm.
too. So we can obviously we want to like kind of temper our s- openness, our newfound freedom with at the same time, like you said, using some critical thinking. And it doesn't mean we're all going to arrive at the same conclusion, but
Hmm.
at least we know like, oh, this is true for me, this works in my life.
Yep.
And I feel like again it's like a form of approaching it with curiosity versus just like diving right into what I would call like a fully like prepackaged new belief system, which
Right.
again can be, mm, I think, completely secular. It can be religious. It can be political. It can be
Social.
exercise,
Yeah.
social, diet. There's
Yeah.
like again, there's cults around everything, and probably all those things I just mentioned contain good aspects, right?
Hmm.
And things we're going to want to explore, but there's also like, we can. I think it's natural to try to find something that's going to fill that whole void that's left after we leave the witnesses.
Hmm.
And I think it's better if, instead of just finding one thing that does it, if we can pull from different sources.
Yep. I
And I,
agree 100%.
yeah. And I found myself after I left being very obsessed and hyper focused on one thing,
Hmm.
and and realizing, oh, this isn't like, I can't make this my identity. Like, being
Hmm.
an atheist and reading atheist books and watching atheist videos in of itself does not make for some fully like constructed identity, and it shouldn't. I don't think.
No.
That's my opinion. So, that's where you bring in other things, where it's also not just working out or just this or just that. It's like, again, just
The things
uh
that make you a well-rounded person.
well-rounded person. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not, if you have some obsessions, I'm not trying to, this isn't with no judgment. I'm just talking about myself mostly here, and I
It's
things
okay.
I found helpful, right? That's what we're
I have ADHD. I
yeah.
hyperfixate. Like, it's fine, guys. We all do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah. Yes, it's fine to like get obsessed with something and throw yourself into it. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that, but I think I've done a lot of reading on this too, about, like mountain climbers when they come down from the mountain and they have to
Hmm.
stay in the valley because they can't climb anymore.
Hmm.
And but that was like literally their whole personhood, their whole identity had to do with being a mountain climber, right? And so it's just um and then they talk about having to, almost like being, right, like waking up from a high control group, like kind of
Hmm.
having to figure out, like, what do I do? What do I do
What's
now? Like,
next?
who am I right now? I'm not, now I'm a former mountain climber, but I don't just want to be a former mountain climber, right? I want to be something else.
Now,
And
right.
yeah, and I think that's another thing too, right? Like, oh, we're ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, but I don't just want to be an ex-Jehovah's Witness.
Thank you. That is completely my thing. That's really the thing. I can't tell you how many times I have told like my therapist or whoever, like, I recognize it's a personality trait of mine right now. That's fine because it's something that I'm actively working through. I don't want it to always be a personality trait that I'm that girl that grew up a Jehovah's Witness, or I'm, that girl that was in a cult, or that girl who what, like, no, I just, because there's so much more to me.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
I
think I'm
think,
pretty dope. Like, I'm dope as fuck.
all right. Yes. Yes. So,
And the fact that I
uh,
was in a cult is probably no. That's actually kind of like, because how many people can say that? Like, for real, for real. So it's
yeah,
kind of,
that actually, that a lot of people could say it, but most people don't recognize that they were actually in one. So,
that's true. That's true. That's true. But yeah, I don't want it to be a personality trait of mine forever.
hmm, yeah, yeah. And I'm not like, I don't shy away, even if I've just met people from talking about it.
Hmm.
Um, it's, I was told once, is like, well, that's really the most interesting thing about you, right? but um, it was said in, good fun, I guess, a little bit of tongue in cheek, hopefully.
I think at the end of the day, my life motto has been and will probably always will be: do what you want, don't be a dick.
Great motto.
Thank you.
Great motto. I like it. I'm
Thank you.
not. I'm not gonna say anything else on top of that because I can't top it. Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining in on this little chat that we've been having. We hope you like it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're planning on being back fairly regularly for recording,
Hmm.
and you can follow us on Instagram at
At
the
dot.
dot reconstructionist with the S on the end. And if you like our videos, subscribe.
Hmm.
Leave a comment. Thank you, everyone who has commented and subscribed. We appreciate you.
Hmm.
Do we have our topic for the next episode yet, or is it going to be a surprise? I think
I
it's going to be a
think right now
surprise.
it's going to be a surprise.
Okay.
But I do want to ask something of our listeners. If you guys have any ideas for what you'd like to see put up as content on our Instagram page and any other social medias that we might end up developing in the future, please let us know. DM us, comment on the YouTube channel, or when I do the snippet on Instagram. And yeah, let us know.
That's great. Thank you for mentioning all of that. And I just want to mention this. As everyone knows, me, Mr. Mediocre with technology, the podcast app, distribution app I was using for the audio version of the podcast used to distribute to all of the major podcast platforms. That app has been purchased by Spotify. So guess who they distribute the podcast to now? Only Spotify.
Spotify. Wow.
So audio podcasts, I am working to get it on Apple Podcasts and a couple of others. I won't get into the weeds with that because I don't understand them myself. But you might just get the audio only on Spotify for a little while.
Until
And then
we
I'm
can
going to
get
be,
that figured out.
yeah, until I get that figured out. So I just wanted to mention that as a bit of housekeeping as well.
I'm learning this in real time too, guys. So
Yes,
this is
yes.
fun for all of us.
You gotta
Like
work
they're
on the communication.
they're gonna rewind and be like, "Oh yeah, you can see she really was surprised."
I just drop it on you like on the camera. But yes, everyone, again, thank you for watching and listening. We'll be back
Yep.
soon.
Yeah, love and light, babies.